Why is it if you look on Google for the typical American man, you're going to see this? And if you go to Google and you search the typical Russian man, you're going to see this. I didn't make the world believe that one side is manlier than the other, or that one side is more feminine, fat, lazy than the other, or the other one's always outside without a shirt in winter, just super strong. I'm not the one who decides these things. And, I want to know why it is we came to this point. I remember growing up in the 1990s, and the greatest generation was still very much alive and kicking. We're talking about, of course, the World War II veterans, the men who went to go fight alongside of the Soviets at the time against the fascists, the Nazis, right? They came back home and they instilled great morals on our society. In the 1950s was very straight edge. And where did that go? Did Russia experience that? If you're watching this and you're from a Soviet country or you're from Russia now, can you tell me if your older generation is known to be a lot stronger mentally, more morally correct than modern age Russians? Are we on the same timeline? Because it looks like we were going somewhere and then we just took a left turn into Looney Town. I know I'm a fat piece of work. Like, I know I'm fat and overweight. And I guess I do fall into that Google search picture, right? But if you see the thumbnail, that's another whole problem. The making our men more feminine thing, or like making our men women, is also a major thing that's happened in the United States in the last maybe like 20 years. And I guarantee you it has not gone that rampant in Russia. Now, from the thumbnail, you might think, hey, this guy just is always bad talking in the United States. No, actually, I think that America has very, very strong and men, true men. And it's usually in southern states or northern states, not really in the coasts where the sun is really good, right? And I think geography has a lot to do with this, because the majority of Russia does experience harsh winters or hard winters or some snow throughout the year. The majority of the United States doesn't. And I would say, of course, a lot of the United States sees snow, but it's not really populated in those areas, right? Where in Russia, major cities do get a lot of snow. Now, let me bring you guys back. The question is why? Why is it that the world sees us this way? If you ask a foreigner outside of Russia and America, and you ask them, hey, what is the typical American? They usually think what Google says. And if you ask them, what is the typical Russian? It's usually what Google says too. I know they say in America, oh, it's a stereotype, it's a stereotype. Why are you stereotyping? Tell me if I'm wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. What country are you watching from? Tell me what country you're watching from and if you agree with these stereotypes that we put out. And then we'll see, we'll let the comments be the judge. Because when I came here to Russia, people here in Russia were always asking me, hey, is it true that American guys, like, they paint their face and like they're really feminine? Like, they really thought that it's every American guy. It's like a joke to them. and and in America, there's always a joke like, oh yeah, the Russian guys are wrestling bears. Did we do this to ourselves? Did we like spiral into this where we made the Russians the manly guys and the Russians made us the feminine guys, and we just ended up believing it, and now we just can't get out of our loop? I don't know. Now every place in America doesn't fit that stereotype like I was talking about, because America is big and it has many states, so it's very different depending on the state. But what I find interesting is that the majority of Russia has the same mentality, where they are very manly, where they aren't really big fat slobs, and they're not really that divided when it comes to these type of topics. And Russia's bigger than the United States, but they're more united in the mentality. And what's also fascinating is that Russia is comprised of like really different ethnic groups, like different ethnic groups everywhere. And the United States, for the most part, is mostly like, you have Americanized Mexicans like myself, where I'm American in culture when I'm in the United States. You have Italian Americans, but it's like the American Italian, Mexican American, Italian American, Nigerian American. You're always routing back to the American thing. Where in Russia, I feel that the different ethnic groups, like you can say the Chechen, is not going to be so similar to the Buryat, right? They might not have the same customs. So these are really different people. Where in America, we're bounded and we're like gravitating towards each other by burgers in the end of the day, by capitalism and consumerism. Like we love to do the same things, right? Why is it that the majority of Russia is more united on this topic, where they are a little bit straight and they don't want nothing to do with the crazy stuff? Sorry, I got something in my eye. But in America, there's so many states and they can't agree on anything. Some states will let your kid turn into a woman by the age of when they're born, and some states do not agree with this. So this is the question, I guess. I think about this because I find America and Russia to be so similar in a way. I can't describe it, I can't explain it, but they're just so similar. And when it comes to topics like these, they're like polar opposites. So are you watching from a country that is more like this, where they're just like, oh yeah, girlfriend, you do you, boo boo, and move on with your life? Or are you with more of a culture that's a lot more straight, a lot more traditional and stuff like this? Because actually, the world is kind of splitting itself in half. It's moving into its own little two sides, where one's a lot more traditional and has like believes that you don't do that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to call it out by its name, but we all know what we're talking about here. And the other side is it's going all out. One side is straight and the other one's like a rainbow. And I record these videos because I really think about these things. It's interesting to me. Why do these things happen? Why is it we in America cannot just agree on things? We can't agree on the simplest of things. Or in Russia, they seem to be on board, and they might call it a dictatorship, right? Maybe it's the dictatorship of Putin. Maybe he's a overlord of these things. But I mean, if that's a dictatorship, to want your society to be a lot more healthy, a lot more mentally healthy as well, then that's a good thing. And if we have a society like in America where it's every 4 years war with each other, every 4 years we're debating whether a boy is a girl or a girl's a boy, or who can have babies, like I have not heard any of that here in Russia. And it's not to say, this might blow some of your guys' mind. I'm not saying that people like that don't exist in Russia, right? Like you see them here in Russia. The biggest difference is that they don't manifest into society. They don't impose their will onto the people that are around them. And I guess that's the biggest problem in America. Small groups impose their will on bigger groups, and then America imposes its will on the Western world. And it's just a huge avalanche. And it seems to me, to tie this back to the beginning, why it's happening, it seems like the avalanche is unstoppable now. Whenever this started, it just grabbed so much momentum that there's absolutely no stopping it. And it seems to me that it's not going to stop in my lifetime. I don't see it stopping. And it can start in Russia. So, this is why Russia's doing these new decrees for traditional values and all these things. This is where it's all tying itself. Like, I feel that Russia is building itself a buffer, right? It's buffering itself from the crazy stuff with Westerners. Because if it brings Westerners and it shows Russian values to its new Westerners, and the Westerners actually take it in, then they'll be like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. So I'm making a full circle here with the decree stuff and just with what I'm thinking. Sometimes I just go on these thoughts because I'm hopefully going to have kids in this country, and I don't want my kids to have to worry about things every 4 years or have to worry about, random politics that are going to affect them. Politics should not be affecting people directly, right? I shouldn't have to be affected by politics where my piece of chicken might be filled with cancer things or might change the sex of a frog in the swamps, like Alex Jones says, or I don't know, like he's making them the frogs gay or something. Like that's the kind of stuff that politics shouldn't be messing with. And I feel that it does happen a lot in the United States. I just like to share my thoughts. These are the type of things that you end up running into when you clash with cultures. Because I felt like I was the all American guy. Uh, I'm a Mexican American, but like I was a proud American, and I say I was when it comes to like that part of the culture because I thought we were a manly society, a society that was going straight, a society that valued traditions and valued what the greatest generation gave us. But I'm not really that proud of what America's pushing out now. And I know that it's going to get worse, but I'm still proud to be American and I'm rooting for my team. But it's getting hard, man. It gets crazy, like in the movies where they're rooting for a team that's so bad and it's losing all the time. I feel that we're just losing all the time now as Americans. We lose in politics and economics. And one of the biggest things you don't want to lose is your society, the membrane, the center of everything. And you can't let it rot. This is like an SOS video. I'll be seeing you guys on the next one. If you enjoyed rants, topics like these, I don't know, give your opinion. Uh, I made a live where I talked about an update on the house. I do all sorts of content on this channel. Bye.